Welcome to the EOB podcast, where we talk about the weekend box office and the new openings this week. I'm Bino, and joining me is Sin Dong. Hey, Sin, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
A lot of things happened over the weekend. We have the 3 new releases, and then we have the Oscars.
Yeah, and then we also have Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon 2, which debuted on Netflix last Friday with a handful of IMAX theaters.
How about we start off with some Oscar talks?
Sure.
All right, did you watch it?
What was your? Yeah, I saw it. I saw it.
Before I let you continue, let me set this up. Remember that there was
Okay.
this controversy saying, hey, all the nominees, etc., are all white people. There are no black
Yeah.
actors nominated, no black films nominated, and then this big blow up about saying, hey, where are the people of color in this industry? I think Will Smith, his wife, and others saying, hey, I'll boycott this Oscar. I won't attend it.
Right.
And, okay, so that's the thing right there. Okay, and then the Academy did changing some rules, hopefully trying to integrate more people of color into their voting process, etc. All right, you take it from there.
Well, and then there's the Ask Me More, which is the thing that I think happened on Twitter, which is with the women movement. Why are they constantly asking these women about what they're wearing instead of about their movies? So there's that going on too, and equal pay for women. So that's all up there, and Chris Rock just handled it pretty well. He kind of took a step back and go, hey, look, I mean, this is not intentional racist thing going on in Hollywood. It's one of those things that are noticeable that it's probably because the execs, because of the decision makers are probably mostly white. Of course, they green light films that feature mostly white people. At the same time, he said they didn't go out there and go, hey, we only want white people to be in these movies. It's just that there aren't as many opportunities for people of color to be in these movies. His whole thing with the Ask Me More with women is he's like, well, I mean, yeah, I thought what he said was pretty on point because he's like, look, if George Clooney is wearing some lime green tuxedo with feathers coming out of his ass, he would be asking him, hey, George, what are you wearing? But yeah, I screwed up his joke, but you get the point.
That's why he's the comedian and you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the environment we live in, right? I mean, the majority of the stories are feature white people because, hey, those are the movies that makes money. I'm sure if all these Chinese movies make money, they'll bring them in. They'll cast all these Chinese actors. It's the same thing with here. It's like whatever is making money, they'll pour money in. They'll pour the resources in.
Yeah, that's true too. It's one of those chicken and egg things. So I feel like because these are the movies that make money, so then they cast all these white people in these movies, which means so few people of color. Well, that's another thing. They mentioned black a lot, but Asians are just bad, if not worse. It's one of those chicken and egg things because they get so few opportunities. They don't really have much in their resume, which leads to less opportunities. And I think that what Chris Rock said was, hey, give us more opportunities. What I thought he said was kind of on point, and why is, hey, just give us more opportunities. Put more black people in your movies. Put more Asians. Put more Latinos. Put more people of color in your movies. Then they have a resume. Then they can actually draw in people. The problem is now a lot of them don't have any resume, and they don't really have anything to show. And because they don't have a resume, they don't have these opportunities. And then the only people you can hire are the predominantly white people.
Yes, and I see the light in this is online, Netflix. It is because the structure is such that, hey, there's only so many slots that you can slot movies in. Of course, you're going to slot the movies that you think will make the most money, right? That has the best bang for the buck. But with online, it's kind of like Amazon, right? They sell almost virtually everything, right? They don't need the shelf space, for example, right? Online, you don't need the shelf space also. The way forward here is online, Netflix or Hulu or whatever, or whoever's funding these online initiatives. And I think that's where it will go.
Yeah, there's that. And TV, I mean, you definitely see a more diverse cast on TV than in the movies.
Yeah, but TV also have the same problem as movie, is that there are time slots. It's not on demand. It's like, okay, we need to make the best of our thing at 7 o'clock. That's because that's when most people are watching, and we need the best movie, and that might not feature the stories, that have a lot of diversities, people.
Yeah, well, by TV, I include cable too. You do see more diversity on TV though, even on your local news. You do see more people of color. You see Asians, you see blacks. Although on the local news channels, all the Asians are women. you almost never see any Asian guy anchoring a local news program. But in general, I think TV is more diverse than the movies. And the thing is, I don't think people are saying, "Hey, put Asians in every movie and put blacks in every movie and put Latinos in every movie." They're pretty much asking for a more representative of the population. Like, Asians make up like 5% of the population in the U.S. In Hollywood, they're just 1%.
Yeah, I mean, just take for example a show that takes place in LA. LA has a huge Asian population. All the doctors are probably Asian. Well, most of them anyway, right? But they cast white actors as doctors, right? So there are
Yeah.
those. But hey,
Yeah.
it's getting better, is what we're saying.
Hopefully, in general, it's getting better.
There is an effort right now, I think, to do something because of this blow up.
Yeah.
People are complaining, actively complaining. There are people like George Clooney or whoever, all the big name actors are saying, "Hey, let's do something about it." They support this effort.
But in general, you do see more diversity on TV than in the movies. And I think on the Asian side, because of China, because the China market has grown so much, they'll probably cast more Asians in movies just to appeal to that market.
Yeah, but still this kind of like cameo thing where they come and help them out a bit, and then okay, thanks for the help, guys, bye.
Yeah, it's still not quite there yet, but I'm saying right now there's probably more of an effort. They're like, whoa, the China market is so huge, we gotta
true.
We gotta appeal to that.
How about we move on to the awards show itself, the winners? I think we spent enough time on those. Okay, so what surprised you? Any surprises for you here?
I guess it's not surprising. I guess I wanted Stallone to win the Best Supporting Actor for Creed, but he didn't. It's not that the actor from Bridge of Spies didn't deserve it, but I guess I was rooting for Stallone. But the biggest surprise was a Spotlight winning Best Picture, of course.
Oh yeah, we knew coming in that it was Spotlight, The Big Short, and The Revenant.
The Revenant has so much momentum going for it, and the Oscars again chose a smaller film. I thought The Big Short would probably win just because, The Big Short kind of clawed its way to 60, almost 69 million at the box office. And Spotlight did not bad, 40 million, but, I thought The Big Short kind of clawed its way into the mainstream, whereas Spotlight was getting there, but, not quite. And then they ended up giving it to the smaller movie, like the year that Hurt Locker. I mean, Hurt Locker was the small, like tiny, almost no box office at all.
Yeah, but the Hurt Locker is at a time where it's politically charged. It's political, I feel.
Sure, there's that too. But it was a tiny, tiny film. It barely, I think at the box office, it only made less than 10 million, I think.
Well, this is the second year in a row where like a small movie won. Last year was Birdman, right? This year was a Big Short. I mean, do you think that there's a conscious effort out there to, hey, let's vote for the small movie instead of like the blockbusters that makes a lot of money?
Yeah. So the Hurt Locker made 17 million, which is one of the lowest grossing Best Picture winners ever. It seems like, there's definitely a, like you said, a kind of a conscious effort to reward smaller films rather than, like The Revenant, which has done so well at the box office. And even The Big Short did pretty well, but they rewarded Spotlight, the lowest grossing of the bunch.
And also, I think Spotlight is a movie that does not, it's kind of like an actor's movie. People actually acted in it instead of, hey, you have this green screen, you have this car chasing down you, have this bear, but Spotlight and The Big Short, those movies are like, hey, people actually acted. So maybe there is that going for the movie as well. I think the biggest block are the actors.
That's true too. In the past, they tend to reward for the Best Picture movie. They tend to reward films that are great in everything, like production design, special effects, acting, screenwriting. They tend to reward films that are like overall that are kind of good in everything. That's
the total Best package, Picture, right?
Yeah, the total package. But recently, it seems like they want to reward films that didn't get a chance to reach the mainstream.
Right. And here's another question, right? Do you think there's a sense that for voters, right, everyone's going to vote for The Revenant anyway. How about I be different and vote for Spotlight? Do you think there's that too?
Yeah, there's probably that too. And some people have also said that The Revenant was a little bit too gory, not something that your average Academy Award voters would vote for, because it's not something that's easy to watch. Let's put it this way. But Spotlight is also timely, like you said, with maybe The Hurt Locker is also kind of timely because everyone thinks that investigative journalism is dead. Spotlight kind of spotlight that, hey, this investigative journalism is very important in our society. And in the internet age, the trend is to write quick and to post quickly smaller stories, but do it more quickly and do more of them instead of these writing that takes a long time to investigate. Basically, old form journalism. And Spotlight is one of those things that it's like, hey, investigative journalism is very important. We should put more money into it. And plus, of course, the main thing is the whole outrage with all these kids getting molested and raped by all these priests. And all these priests, in turn, have been raped and molested by their predecessors. And then this whole system and there's this whole cover-up, massive cover-up going on.
Okay, so there's a sense that maybe the voters want people to watch this movie.
Yeah, there's a sense, like maybe like The Hurt Locker, it speaks to the times. It's something important that the voters wanted people to see and hear about.
Right, and so they vote for it and give it this press.
Yeah. Whereas The Revenant might be a very well-made movie and a very difficult to make movie, and it's very well acted and technically well crafted and all that stuff. But maybe The Revenant just seems to them like, it's a movie, it's make-believe, whereas Spotlight is about something that's kind of more relevant on our times, about subject that matters in our time.
Right, so they think that it's the more important movie, pretty much.
Yeah.
All right. So there's that. And hey, the other surprise? It's George Miller receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award for Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah. But it seems like Mad Max won most of the technical categories.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, hey, that's his Lifetime Achievement Award for.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been more of a Lifetime Achievement Award if he had won Best Director. But it's something that going in that we kind of suspected that, hey, Mad Max will probably clean up in the technical awards, and the other films will win the bigger categories.
Right. Inarritu was pretty much a lock, I felt. Like I say, they give Mad Max all these awards, rewarding George Miller for his body of work, saying, hey, your movie's good, but not good enough. Here's some consolation prizes.
Yeah. I mean, like, your movie's good, but it's not something that we normally give awards to.
Right, as you said in your kind of shortest review, right? The Mad Max Fury Road was a movie kind of like directed by someone on drugs.
Yeah. I mean, Mad Max could have won back in the Titanic days. A movie that's nominated the most tend to win. And, Mad Max did have the most nominations, I think. Well, it had the most nominations. But in this case, they would rather do the Terminator 2 approach, give it all the technical awards.
Oh, right. It's just like we don't have a category for action movies, for example, and they give it to the technical awards, right? Like the Golden Globes, they break it into comedy and drama, which doesn't really mean anything, right? This is kind of like, we also have the action genre that we want to reward for a job well done, and so that's where all the effects movies, all the action movies, all the adventure movies, that they lumped it all into that, the technical awards.
Yeah, right.
All right, I guess that's enough for the Oscars. I didn't watch it. It's surprising to me that Twilight won. Probably a lot of people too, but we knew going in that it might, it's one of the movies that could pull an upset if there is an upset, with The Big Short, right? Being the other one.
And since we're both from Sacramento, we have to give a shout out to Brie Larson for winning Best Actress for Womb. She's from Elk Grove.
All right. I never met her, don't know her, so I haven't seen her movie.
Yeah, me neither.
So Sacramento represents. Yeah, Sacramento represents, right?
Yeah, since we're in Sacramento, we gotta give a shout out.
So, okay, let's jump right into the box office and let's see how the movies did. Coming in number one is Deadpool. It repeated, winning the third weekend in a row. In the top spot, it made $31.5 million. It experienced a 44% drop from the previous weekend, and in 3 weeks, it made $285 million.
Yep, and the worldwide total is 610 million, and it's still going strong. It's already the highest grossing comic book movie for Fox, beating the X-Men films by far, domestically anyway. It looks like it'll eventually be the highest grossing comic book movie. It looks like at what do you think, 350, 400?
I don't think it'll reach the 400s, but the 300s,
Yeah.
it's doable. And another thing about Deadpool is I don't think anyone knows the reason for its success.
People now come up with a lot of reasons. But
Right, they come up with a lot of
it was a
reasons.
surprise hit.
Yeah, it was a surprise hit, but I don't think anyone knows. I mean, for example, if you were to analyze this movie, saying, let's do another Deadpool, I don't think they can.
Definitely in its favor. It's the first, well, not the first. I mean, The Punisher is the first R-rated, not the first R-rated, but one of the first R-rated. It could just be the whole wisecracking, gory, R-rated, filled with profanity. Also, basically not safe for kids.
You know what? I'd like to offer my explanation why Deadpool succeeded. It has good timing because of all the other movies, superhero movies that came before it. And I think it came at the right time. Like all these other superheroes, most of them were pretty good. And then suddenly this Deadpool came out and it's different enough. They've seen enough of the other PG movies. But then Deadpool comes along and it shook some things up. It's different enough from the other ones.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy was pretty different from the lot. And Deadpool is very different from the lot. But that's after the fact, though. But before this, people are like, I don't know if this is going to work or not.
Right, but that's why I'm saying it's so hard to replicate. It's like if they try to do another Deadpool with different characters, it might not work.
Yeah, it is hard to replicate originality, like something you haven't seen before. I mean, some people might be able to tap into that for like the first movie or so. It's kind of like when Avatar first came out when 3D was huge, and then Alice in Wonderland came out, which kind of followed that trend with 3D and was a huge hit. But movies afterwards that try to maximize and try to cash in on the 3D craze, that kind of fad eventually faded really quickly, the 3D fad. And I could see after Deadpool that there might be more R-rated comic book movies coming out, but it's one of those things where the first couple movies might be able to cash in on this new fad, but maybe by the third or fourth movie, people would be like, "Oh, we're good."
Right. Ultimately,
with R-rated comic book movies.
Ultimately, it's the character and the story, right?
Yeah, and being original.
Yeah. Right.
Being original and being different, like you said, being unique in the marketplace.
So we'll chalk it up to that, and we'll see if they can do it. Certainly, there's gonna be a sequel coming along, and we'll see how that will do. Okay, how about we move on to number 2? It's going to be a favorite of ours, Gods of Egypt, starring Gerard Butler, Brandon Thwaites. How about Nick? I'm not gonna try to pronounce his name. Nick Coster-Waldau, directed by Alex Proyas. It just made 14 million over the weekend. I said it would probably do 20 to 25 or something like that.
Yeah, it went higher. At 140 million, this is a major bomb for Lionsgate. And this has Gerard Butler making speeches in front of a green screen a la 300. So I'm surprised this bombed so badly.
Well, the movie doesn't look that good to me, really. In a previous podcast, I say, hey, there's something missing here. It's just like, guys, well, pretty much Gerard Butler making speeches in front of a green screen. The monsters are not that interesting, the CGI monsters. The action pieces seems kind of confused. The color scheme is kind of off. Everything's gold. And but the good thing I read, Lionsgate's exposure to this movie is only 10 million.
Really? So who put up the other 130 million?
Other distributors, they pre-sold all the other properties. They got tax breaks, so their exposure is only 10 million. So they're not going to lose that much money on this.
Did Lionsgate put up all the money to make this movie, or is it like another company put up all the money, made a movie, and sold the rights to Lionsgate for just 10 million?
No, I think Lionsgate paid for the movie, but they pre-sold the territory rights and got tax breaks.
Oh, okay. So the people who are losing money are the people who purchased the rights internationally.
Well, you don't know how it will do internationally.
Yeah, this is the kind of movie that could do pretty well internationally. And speaking of which, it made 24 million in foreign markets, nearly twice as much as what it did here. We'll have to keep an eye out for that. And the great thing for it is, It made 24 million in small markets. There's still no China. There's still no Japan, no South Korea. France is not there. Germany is not there. Russia is not there. You know what? It's a humongous budget. But like you said, Lionsgate's exposure to this is only 10 million. And if it's only 10 million, they could actually make a profit. And the people they sold the rights to, the international rights, might make money at, judging by the box office so far. I mean, 24 million in all these small territories is pretty impressive.
But either way, it's
14 million in the US. Yeah, it's a pretty big bomb. But you kind of have to look at this it's kind of like Shaun of the Sheep. There, when you take a look at just the pure numbers alone, you would think it's a bomb. It only made about 19 million, but they bought the rights for just 2 million, and with marketing and everything, their break-even point was 15 million. So they actually ended up making about probably, they'll have to split the money with theaters, but they made a couple million in profit in theaters, which is just as much as they invested. And that doesn't include the video side of it. Even though it's a bomb, Lionsgate might still make money on this. That's the weird thing. The interesting thing with Lionsgate is that's how they make most of their movies. Like the first Expendables, the way they funded it was they didn't put 80 million out there to make the movie. They sold about 80 million worth of rights internationally. And then they used all the money they made through the rights to make the movie, which is the same thing they did with Gods of Egypt. They probably got, like you said, they only put up 10 million and they sold all these rights, which is a pretty smart way to make movies when you think about it.
Yeah, it kind of like spread out the risk. It's not as risky, but if you have a hit, then you don't get that much money back, right? But it's the risk that exactly. you have to take if you're a small studio, right? Like for Lionsgate, 140 million, if they don't do that, it will sink them.
Yeah, exactly. They're not like WB, where even if they have John Carter, which is like 300 million to make.
Disney made John Carter.
Yeah, Disney. Yeah, okay, yeah, Disney made John Carter. Even though that cost 250 or 300 million, even though that was a complete other bomb, they're such a huge company, they can withstand that. But Lionsgate, at 140 million, it could sink them if they haven't already sold all the international rights. And we saw that happen with Kuroko, the people who made Terminator. They went bankrupt because Cutthroat Island bombed. 80 million was super high budget at the time. When that movie bombed, it pretty much sank their entire studio. And they made Rambo, they made Terminator, and you think like, hey, holy crap, how can a studio that made Terminator and Rambo go bankrupt? And it only took one movie to bankrupt them. So for Lionsgate, it's pretty smart move to sell all the international rights and then use that money to make the movie rather than put up 140 million of their own money to make it and then sell the rights.
Yeah, okay, and I also have to say that Lionsgate benefited from timing. Before, there was no international market to sell to.
Right.
So there's that. All right, so it looks like Lionsgate will actually make money, which is the surprising thing, right? Because
despite the movie bombing really hard.
Right. So because they sold all the rights and got some tax breaks.
Yeah, interesting you brought that up because I didn't know that, and had I not known that, I would say, hey, this is a major bomb. It's the kind of bomb that can bankrupt a company like Lionsgate.
So I guess that's why they made this movie, is because they divested the risk.
Yeah, right, right.
Okay, how about we move on to number 3, which is Kung Fu Panda 3. It made 9 million in this 5th weekend, and so far it made 128 million domestic.
It's surprising how well it's holding up. 28%, 30% drop off after the second weekend. The second weekend, it had a bigger drop off, but after that, it's been holding up really well.
Yeah, and it's also kind of like the only major animated movie in theaters.
The only problem is Zootopia is coming up this Friday.
It's like rabbit versus panda.
Yeah, but if Zootopia wasn't around at its current rate at how well it's holding up, it could equal the growth of the second film domestically. But with Zootopia coming along, I don't think it can get to 160.
Yeah, it looks like it's slowing down anyway, but it's kind of expected given the time frame that it's released in. Winter months, not the summer. Strong competition coming up. And you know what will happen? They're going to hire Justin Lin to direct Kung Fu Panda 4.
Yeah, to revitalize the franchise and reboot it. And they're going to create a character for The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Right. Okay, so let's
Let's
go
move
to
on.
number 4. Risen in its second weekend, it made 7 million and 22.7 million so far. It's the movie
Mhm.
that stars Joseph Fiennes as a Roman soldier who's tasked to find the body of Jesus Christ, who gets resurrected, came alive. It's a pretty good hold, I guess. The drop off is not that big considering the type of movie that it is.
Yeah, it's actually becoming a another modest hit for the faith-based genre. So this genre is still going strong as long as it's modestly budgeted. We're gonna see more of them.
Yeah, we're gonna see more.
And
We
you
will
know,
see more. There's always gonna be more because hey, there is a market for this, however tiny, right? And
yeah,
sometimes we find that one of these movie will break out and make 100 million or 100 million
yeah.
plus, for example. No, but there's always these type of movies.
And this one will be a modest hit. At a budget of 20 million, it looks like it'll eventually make 30, 35 million. And and they'll make more on video.
Yeah, moving along to number 5 is Eddie the Eagle, another new release from last weekend. It pulled in
Mm.
6.3 million over the weekend, and this movie stars Hugh Jackman as a ski jumper who's training some guy, played by Taron Egerton, to jump. And
Mhm.
it did way worse than what I expected to do.
What was your number and what was my number?
So I thought it would probably do somewhere in the 12 million range, and you said 5.
Mm. Oh, okay. So I'm closer on this. What I'm surprised by is how well reviewed it is. 73% on the tomato meter. And usually movies like this are very, formulaic, and critics tend to pound on these movies. But they actually liked it, surprisingly. But, it's not the kind of movie that obviously by the box office people are flocking to. But maybe good word of mouth and good reviews will maybe it'll hold up in the following weeks. And the budget is pretty modest, 23 million. If it has good word of mouth, it will probably eventually get there and make some money on video.
Yeah, like I said in the previous podcast, this movie is kind of British, and those
Hmm.
kind of movies have difficulties here. I'm not surprised by the box office performance, but I thought that maybe, hey, because it has Hugh Jackman in it, I thought that would kind of
Yeah.
lift it up a bit.
If they put a robot in this, like Rio Steel, it might make some money, but without any robots, Hugh Jackman doesn't Hulk out in this.
He's in a winter coat, so I guess he covered himself up.
Yeah, there are no claws.
Right.
At least with the real steel, there's a potential for claws to come out. But in this, there's no potential for any claws to come out or him to rip off his shorts. So, it's surprisingly well reviewed, and I think good word of mouth you'll probably eventually make money on video. All right, let's move on to the other new release over the weekend. At number 6, Triple Nine made 6 million over the weekend. I forgot what I put the number at.
You were pretty much on 5 to 6.
Wow, I'm pretty on this week except for Gaza
Yeah, yeah.
Egypt.
I went high and said 10 to 15.
The reviews are kind of mixed, 55% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not sure what the budget is for
I'm not
this.
sure, but it's probably in the I don't know, it has to be less than 25.
I see 20 million on Wikipedia and I see 28 million on IMDb. Actually, right in your mark, you said 25 million. Yeah. So at that range, again, I'm not sure what the cinema score is, but I remember reading that the cinema score was it kind of bad?
Well, let me take a
Like a
look.
C?
Triple
Yeah,
nine
let's
is a
take a
C
look.
plus.
Oh, okay. So that's a pretty bad word of mouth. So this one might not have the kind of legs that Eddie the Eagle will have. So they're gonna have trouble making back its 25 million budget.
Triple Nine has a good cast. No one stood out. They have some name actors, but those are
Mhm.
people that are best playing supporting actors. The trailer kind of gives a confusing look into what the movie is about. There's like corrupt cops, there are gangs. You don't know who's who, who's doing what. So I guess they kind of try to keep the suspense, but I think that actually clouded the issue. So maybe that's why people might not think that this movie is that good. Even given that, right? I mean, people who watched it gave it a C plus, which is not good.
Exactly.
Okay, how
Right.
about we move on to number 7? The comedy How to Be Single. It pulled in about 5.1 million over the weekend, and in 3 weeks, it's nearing 40 million.
Yeah, which is a couple million more than its budget. So this movie is gonna be profitable. It has a chance to reach 50 million, which is pretty good for a movie that stars Dakota Johnson and Rebel Wilson. 50 million is pretty good.
Yeah, considering the budget, 38 million, if it made 50 is awesome because
Yeah,
they're trying to cater to the female audience.
yeah, and worldwide is already at 74 million, so pretty good.
All right, let's move on to number 8, which is Occupied by the Witch. It's the horror movie that made 5 million over the weekend. The drop off is
Yeah,
only 43%. You expect it to, normally a horror movie would drop off 50, 60% or higher.
yeah, so it's holding up pretty well for a horror movie. After 2 weeks, it's made 17 million, and the budget is pretty low, right?
It has to be low. I don't think it costs more than 5. Seriously. Yeah, this movie was hyped up at Sundance. A24 bought the rights, the distribution rights for it. And, was critically acclaimed. It was kind of well
Right.
reviewed. But I think the audience were disappointed. Like, people were hyping this up and then they saw it. And then I guess, like, the Saturday numbers weren't that great because people, like, word spread that it's not the type of horror movie that they were expecting.
It's really well reviewed, 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. Maybe it's not as bad as you think because a 43% drop off is a really good hold for a horror movie. So I think there are still a lot of people. Maybe it doesn't satisfy your core horror fan, but people outside of that, because it's so well reviewed, maybe people outside of that genre are catching it.
Oh, right. Because Saturday's numbers are usually higher than Friday numbers,
Yeah,
right? For its opening weekend, they're roughly the same. So that's why people say that there's this drop off because, normally people go to watch it on Saturday, but I heard that word
yeah.
of mouth wasn't that great. And so that's why you see this dip on
Yes,
Saturday.
maybe what happened was all these horror fans went to see it on Friday. It didn't get this normal Saturday bump, but on a week-to-week basis, it's holding up pretty well, 43%. So it does seem like maybe people in the indie market are going out to watch it because it's so well reviewed and it was such a hit at Sundance.
Right. So those people who are looking for blood and guts or dissatisfied with it, but people who are looking for something else, I guess they went out and watched.
For people who are looking for a good movie or great movie or going out or seeking it out.
Okay, moving along to number 9 is Race. It pulled in
Mhm.
4.2 million over the weekend, and it's in the second week it made about like 13.8 million. Now it's a huge disappointment, I feel.
Especially compared to some of the later films based on Black history, especially since last month was Black History Month. The number is kind of disappointing. I'm surprised this didn't get more support from the African American audience.
Yeah, and I chalk it up to the genre, as we say.
Yeah,
Action, comedy, adventure, good.
yeah.
Drama, iffy.
Well, historical drama, iffy. Well, it depends. It depends. Like something
That's why we
even
say
like
iffy, right? That's why we
yeah,
say
iffy,
iffy.
yeah. But if go with comedy, action comedy, or something like Straight Outta Compton, then good or great. For every race, there's a 42. Could be a major super hit like 42, or could be like Waste. Since it's only made for 5 million, you're gonna lose money. It might even make a profit, but it's not as big of a film as we expected it to be or we wanted it to be.
Okay, moving along to number 10 is The Revenant. It made 3.8 million over the weekend. In 10 weeks, it made 170 million. You could say
Barely
that
any drop off from last
yeah, you could
weekend.
say that it got a Oscar bump, right?
Yeah, it did get an Oscar bump. But it'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend with Spotlight. I wonder if they're going to do a Oscar expansion. Interesting. Over the weekend, they already expanded it to 685 theaters. They added nearly 300 theaters over the weekend.
Yeah, Big Short
So I
also
wonder.
added theaters.
Oh, okay. So the major Best Picture nominees added theaters. After this weekend, I wonder if they will expand it even more for Spotlight.
I think they will.
That's number 10, huh?
That's number 10. How about we also say something about The Mermaid, Stephen Chow's comedy. And remember
Mhm.
what we said it would do? Since it has such a high per theater average, they added more
So
theaters.
they expanded it to 77 theaters and it made 670,000 at a per screen average of nearly 9,000, which is still the highest per theater average of all releases. But it doesn't look like they can expand it that much more.
And The Mermaid is China's highest grossing movie to date. It seems like
Yeah.
every year there's some highest grossing movie over in China.
Yeah, because the film market has grown so much year after year. So The Mermaid made 2 million after 2 weeks, which is pretty good for one of these releases.
That's true, but like we said, like the highest grossing movie in China doesn't really mean anything over here. So sometimes there's this cultural barrier that's preventing these movies from crossing over.
It's kind of hard to say though. I mean, it does make a difference. The Mermaid is one of the highest grossing independent Chinese films ever without a wide release. The other ones like Crouching Tiger eventually went nationwide. Hero had a wide release. Fearless had a wide release. But for limited releases, this is the highest debut. It does mean something based on how jam-packed the theaters were last weekend. Like 29,000 is nothing for theaters, it's nothing to scoff at. So there is an audience for it. But it's one of these things like they don't market these movies much except to that Chinese crowd. But like you said, what happens if these movies were actually marketed on a national level? Can they make more?
We probably won't find out.
Yeah. I mean, like Kung Fu Hustle, when they marketed nationally, they made 25 million in the US. Not great, but for a foreign film, not bad too.
Yeah, but I have to say Kung Fu Hustle came after Crouching Tiger. So they were trying to see if they can do the same thing with Kung Fu Hustle.
Right.
So that's it for the releases, the movies in theaters. Let's move on to the new openings. We have 3 wide releases this weekend. We have London Has Fallen, Zootopia, and Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, aka WTF. Okay, how about we start off with London Has Fallen, the sequel to Olympus Has Fallen. It stars Gerard Butler, Angela Bassett, Aaron Eckhart, Morgan Freeman, Jackie Earle Haley, Melissa Leo, Radha Mitchell. It's pretty much the people from the first movie. So instead of the White House, the action now takes place over in London.
What do you think about the sequel? Because the first film was about the White House. It became a surprise hit. And, they can't blow up the White House again. So now they're moving on to London.
Olympus Has Fallen, I thought was a okay movie, and I think the sequel might open less than the first movie because I think people might seen what the movie has to offer. This I feel is a retread of the first movie. I think it's gonna open to 25.
I think of the 2 White House movies, I think one reason why Olympus Has Fallen became the hit out of the 2 is these are action movies, and Gerard Butler is an action star. Channing Tatum is in the action star. Jamie Foxx is in the action star. So this is the kind of movies where Gerard Butler can shine in. But it feels like a movie that you can only do once. So London Has Fallen is kind of a stretch. The budget looks higher, but it might be one of those things where, hey, I don't think anyone was asking for a sequel. So your 25 million, I might have to go with even lower. I might have to go with 20 million. Yeah, Olympus Has Fallen seems like one of those one-off movies people don't need to see anymore. Let's move on to Zootopia then.
Animated film by Disney.
Yeah, and Disney's animated department has been doing really well sometimes. At times even upstaging Pixar. Amazing review so far on Rotten Tomatoes, 100%. The thing is, even though the Disney animated brand critically has been a more reliable brand, and even though their films have done really well, with Frozen hitting, like upwards of 400 million, their other films are more like 200 million or in the 150 to 200 million range, whereas Pixar's films, each of them, with the exception of The Good Dinosaur, can easily gross 200 million plus. So Zootopia probably will end up in that range, like probably 50 to 60 million range. I'll go 55.
55. Well, I feel that Zootopia, it's geared toward more older crowd. This is a story about a cop. It's really an animated buddy crime comedy. About the rabbit trying to solve a case, and she pulled in this fox and tried to help her solve this case. I'm not sure if kids like to watch a more mature storyline, I guess. So I think this might be lower, I feel. 40.
Well, I'm putting it at 55, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did better than 55 because of all the goodwill that Disney Animation has been garnering. And this one, the reviews are fantastic, 100%. And if you read the quotes, some people are saying this is Disney Animation's best. they're surprised that this film is coming from Disney Animation. Again, because Pixar is such a great brand, they think that this is the kind of film that Pixar at their peak comes up with or makes.
I wouldn't be surprised if it made more than My 40 as well, but my feeling is that, this is kind of like a different type of movie from Disney, not the usual movie. So I'm not sure. I'll get more of a feel after it opens.
I think you're way underestimating. I think this is one of those like Minions and Kung Fu Panda. There's all these animals. Kids are gonna eat it up, even though the humor might appeal to adults more. This might be one of those, classic Pixar movies that will appeal to both adults and really little kids. So,
you might be right, but I'm willing to take a contrarian view on this.
I think you're really wrong though.
Okay,
based
but I'm
on
willing
the
to
review so far.
Okay. All right, WTF.
WTF.
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. It is the comedy starring Tina Fey. She plays a reporter who went over to a war zone, probably in, I don't know, one of these Afghanistan or whatever. Yeah, okay. War-torn countries as a reporter and trying to bring back the news. It also stars Margot Robbie and Martin Freeman, Billy Bob Thornton.
Bunch of good talent involved other than Tina Fey. The reviews are, there's only 5 reviews so far, and 3 of them are good, 2 of them are negative. Looks like one of those films that's getting a mixed reaction from critics. Yeah, I don't have a very good feel for this movie. I'm thinking it's one of those 5 million type movies.
Yeah, my feeling's the same because like the last 2 movies that kind of try to mine comedy in the Muslim world.
Yeah, pretty much tanked.
Yeah. The other one was like searching for comedy in a Muslim world by the guy who did all the I don't know. What was that movie? That comedy. Well, he did a bunch of comedy. I forget his name right now. Which pretty much tanked. And then there's another. Well, it's not Muslim world, but it has stars Billy Bob Thornton as well. It's kind of like All Brand is Crisis. I kind of get that feel from that as well. And then there's Rock the Casbah. Could do 10 million, but my range is 5 to 10.
I doubt it.
Yeah, but my range is 5 to 10 because Tina Fey.
Well, Tina Fey, her films when she has to make movies without what's her name? Yeah, her films without Amy Poehler hasn't exactly hit. I'm not going 5 to 10. I'm going 5, straight 5.
There's a potential to make more than 5, so 5 to 10.
We're kind of agreed on London. You're going 25. I'm going a tad below that, 20. Zootopia is where we disagree about. I'm thinking 55 million or more. You're thinking 40 million. You're going a little bit lower. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. I'm going 5. You're going 5 to 10. So I'm going on the lower end of your spectrum. So we'll see this coming Friday.
I'm willing to be wrong on Zootopia, but hey, like I say, I see something. We'll see if it's right or wrong. We'll find out next Monday.
All right.